Hi there, welcome to my channel and welcome to 1799 of the Decades Challenge. And we have quite a few things happening this year. As usual, all the Sims in our main household enjoy splashing in this pond. We have some birthdays across both of our main households.
Humpleborkna!
We have some cast makeovers. And we have some new characters joining our cast, some of whom have good intentions,
Silly!
and some of whom cause a little bit of drama.
Chaff, thou beezy, Bacopa, and Trebe!
Yibs! Anduma, Zonksko, Jabin, Shanka Glamol, Yorid,
Rainik Womberk,
Farsip, Bajelja, Quack,
Algariz Braniqua,
Nargi Misakoi!
At the very start of 1799, not very much is happening. It's autumn this year, so the weather's getting a little bit colder, and the family are just performing their usual chores around the farm. However, although it is a quiet start, 1799 is going to be a busy year because this year we have 4 birthdays coming up. 2 in the second household and 2 here in our main household. But as usual today we just find Anne performing her favourite thing, which is playing in the pond. It's Monday morning, we're starting to move through 1799, and in our main household everyone is just performing their chores, but the rest of Monday will be spent in our second household because we have a birthday over there. And here we are across at our second household, and the first birthday we have today on Monday is for the eldest child in this household, Bruce. Bruce is aging up from a teen to a young adult, and he is the first of the second generation to reach adulthood. As not only the eldest child but also the eldest boy in this family, Bruce is the heir to this household. His traits that he already has are practice makes perfect and self-assured, and for his aspiration, I'm giving him successful lineage because as the heir, Bruce does appreciate the importance of his role as the heir, and he will be looking to get married and have a family and continue the MacLeod family name. So for his third trait, I am going to choose something appropriate to that, and I am going to make him family oriented. Bruce very much cares about his family. His father is a very old elder at this point, and spoiler alert, doesn't have much longer left to live. And as you can see there, Bruce's mother Elizabeth is still just an adult. And when Stuart, Bruce's father, dies, Stuart will take over this household as the main man in the house, despite the fact that his mother will still be alive and still living there, and he very much lives up to that responsibility, and he takes that responsibility very seriously, which is starting to cause a little bit of drama with his younger siblings. Not so much Alfred, but especially with the 3 that we see here, the twins Charles and Hamish, and his one and only sister Margaret, who has recently aged up to a teen, because these 3 kind of feel like Bruce is their brother and not their father, and shouldn't be trying to tell them what to do. And on Tuesday, we are again still at our second household because we have another birthday, and this time it's for the youngest sibling in this household, Victor. Victor is aging up from a toddler to a child, so now there are no more infants or toddlers in this household. Victor is going to be a little bit more adventurous than his other siblings. Just like Bruce appreciates that he is the eldest sibling and what that means, Victor appreciates that he is the youngest sibling, and as the youngest sibling, there probably isn't going to be much of the family fortune left for him. And he knows, even at this young age, that he's going to have to carve his own way in the world. And Victor is going to be active. And he's going to have some other active, adventurous, outdoorsy type traits as he grows up, because Victor appreciates that he's not only going to have to leave the family household, but he's probably going to have to leave the neighbourhood and carve out a living for himself. Victor's look in Cass again is going to be a little bit different from the other Sims. And there are a number of reasons for that, one of them being that he is the youngest and his behaviour is a little bit different. He knows he's not going to get a share of the family money, and he knows it's probably not even worth trying to fight for it. And also because there's a little bit of an attitude of his parents not essentially have forgotten him, but he's kind of a little lower on their priorities. His father is, as I say, very, very old now. His mother's preoccupied with her growing children and the escapades that they're getting up to, and Victor sometimes gets a little bit forgotten. And so Victor's everyday wear here is less formal and less opulent than that of his older siblings. Likewise, his formal wear, it's a little bit more laid back with the rolled up sleeves. His sportswear is almost like something we would see on the children from our main household. Sleepwear is just the standard sleepwear. His party wear, again, it's formal, but it's a little bit more laid back. Swimwear, we're a little bit restricted in the swimwear that we have, but again, for his warm weather wear, he's going to be wearing this outfit that looks like it belonged to one of the Sims from our main household. And his cold weather wear is a little bit more formal, but he does have the big chunky boots on his feet, because Victor likes to be outside and he likes to be exploring the world. And with those changes, you can see our households there, and you will also see that there are two new households, one with just one Sim and one with one Sim who has a dog. And these are two new characters who are going to be joining our series as of 1799. They are Richard McNeil and Emily Ogilvie with her dog Major the Shetland Collie, or Sheltie, and they will both play very important roles. And we return to our main house to find Penny and Anne having an in-depth discussion about something very important. This year is going to be a big year for Anne, as she also has a birthday, but not until a little bit later in the year. And continuing on with Penny teaching Anne the ways of the world, she's now teaching Anne how to cook. It's Wednesday, we're halfway through the year, and at our main household, Alexander is receiving a visit from a new friend that he made the last time he went into town, and that friend is Emily Ogilvie. Emily, like Alexander, is a teenager, and she is the daughter of a farming family who live in another part of Henford-on-Bagley. Alexander and Emily already have quite a good friendship, but on this particular day, Alexander's feeling a little bit flirty, because although they are good friends, Alexander also has a little bit of a crush on Emily. Emily is also quite keen on Alexander, which is why she's come to visit him here at his house, and Emily doesn't reject it when Alexander makes the bold move of kissing her hands. And Alexander is actually glad that Emily chose to visit today, because this is a good excuse for him to introduce Emily to his mother and father, Penny and Rory. Emily, like most teenage girls in our Decades Challenge, is creative, and her other trait is that she is a rancher. Emily is quite fond of horses and all other sorts of animals in the farm, and just like Penny when she was a teenager, Emily isn't afraid of getting her hands dirty to lend a hand on the farm. And after some chat, Emily and Penny are quickly becoming friends and getting along quite well together. And Emily has also introduced herself to Rory, and Rory has taken a liking to Emily as well. Although Alexander and Emily are still just friends, Alexander is secretly hoping that they can be a little bit more than that, and he's hoping that the fact that Emily chose to visit him at home, and now that he's been able to introduce her to his parents, maybe he can look to take their relationship to the next level. But he's not quite ready to do that yet. But that is something he has in the back of his mind. As much as Alexander really likes Emily, he's also very conscious of the fact that the polite and correct thing to do in 1799 is to patiently get to know her a little bit, get to know her family, and then ultimately go and meet her family and do things the right way. He doesn't want to rush anything, but he is also very keen on her. And after Wednesday being a pleasant day in our main household, where Alexander introduced his friend that he's quite keen on to his family, it's a slightly different story over here at our second household. Because just as Alexander went into town and met a young girl that he was quite keen on, Margaret has also gone into town and met a young boy that she's quite keen on. Margaret is the second youngest of the children in this family, and the only girl, and she has only recently become a teenager, but already she has someone in town that she has her eye on. And unlike Alexander, Margaret doesn't really care so much for following protocol, and neither does her young friend Richard here. Richard McNeil is a teenager from a family that lives in town that used to be a family of high social standing, but due to some of the eccentricities of his father, that's not really the case anymore. In fact, the McNeil family have quite a bad reputation in town, and something about that makes Richard more interesting to Margaret. And when Bruce finds his one and only little sister in a bathroom on her own with Richard, he begins to grow suspicious. The relationship between Bruce and Margaret has been a little bit tense, especially since their father started getting poorly with old age, and since Bruce aged up and feels like he is now the owner of the house. Margaret doesn't appreciate him trying to tell her what to do, but he sees it as his responsibility to make sure that she remains an honourable young lady, and he doesn't think that's going to happen with rogues like Richard around. And so Bruce sent Richard home, but Margaret wasn't happy about this, and Margaret isn't the type to keep her thoughts to herself. Unlike her older brothers, Margaret didn't have a problem telling Bruce exactly what she thought about him, acting like he was their father and trying to tell them what to do. She argued he had no place to try to tell her what to do, and he argued back that she was becoming a disgrace. She was shaming the family with her behaviour. Margaret argued back that Bruce is too uptight, and he doesn't even understand or even know her. Bruce tried to tell her that she needed to remember her place, but Margaret wasn't having any of it. The argument started to escalate, and their relationship began to become difficult. Back at our main household, although sibling relationships aren't going very well in our second household, they're still going very well here in our main household, because sisters Anne and Audrey still have a very strong bond and a very good relationship with each other. In fact, these two sisters have such a good relationship that Anne has proudly told Audrey that she is her favourite. It's Friday morning and we're nearing the end of 1799, but there's still a few more things to happen before the year ends, and today is Anne's birthday, and Anne is going to age up from a child to a teenager. For her aspiration, Anne is creative, and she's also quite homely and appreciates things around the farm and helping out and making things for her family where she can, and so her aspiration is to be Lady of the Knits. Her first trait was creative, and her second trait is going to be the idealist. Anne absolutely is an idealist. She sees the best in everyone and thinks the best of everything, and always hopes for the best in everything. And now it's time to just pop into Cass and give Anne a bit of a makeover. So this is how Anne looks as she has aged up. I'm just going to make some changes. I'll keep that hairstyle for her formal hair. And looking at her face, I can see that she has aged up with no abnormalities in her nose or chin or anything, but she has aged up looking like Rory, which is interesting because Alexander aged up to a teenager and looks like Penny. But I'm now just going to go across and change all of her outfits and give her a few different hairstyles for her different looks, and I'll show you how she looks once I'm done. And I have set a new record because Anne is now the sim I have spent the longest on in Cass for this decade's challenge. But I finally have all her looks set. This is her everyday look. This is her formal look. She's got a slightly fancier hairstyle and shoes there. This is her sportswear, which is the same dress that Penny wears as her everyday wear, it's just in different colours. This is her sleepwear, which is actually meant to be for elders, but I thought it looked quite good on her. She wears the headscarf to bed as well. And this is her party wear, which is the same dress as she had for her formal wear, it's just in a different colour, and she's got her hair down. This is her swimwear, again it's the same swimwear that I give to all the Sims from this era. This is her warm weather wear, which is actually just the same as her everyday wear. And this is her cold weather wear, which is an outfit that I haven't used yet for any of the Sims, but I thought it was a nice plain and simple dress for her to have. And that is Anne. And now that Anne has aged up to a teen, she wants to go and meet the rest of her cousins. She's met the oldest two, Bruce and Alfred, but she hasn't met any of her other four cousins. And being the idealist and the friendly sim that she is, and having heard all about them from her older brother Alex, Anne has gone across to her cousin's house so that she can introduce herself to everyone, where she's sure they will all be fast friends. She's especially excited to meet her cousin Margaret because, as we saw earlier, Anne has a good relationship with her sister Audrey, and in her mind Margaret would just be like another sister. And so Anne finds Margaret and cheerfully introduces herself to her and is keen to get to know all about her. However, something that Anne hasn't bargained for is that she and Margaret don't really have that much in common. In fact, they're two very different individuals. But as Bruce arrives, Margaret still feels upbeat. She has a good relationship with Bruce, and she's sure that she maybe just got off on the wrong foot with Margaret, and maybe she can salvage this relationship. When Bruce excuses himself and leaves the two of them alone, Anne asks Margaret if there's something going on there, because things seemed a little bit awkward. And for some reason, the answer she gets makes their friendship even worse. Things don't seem to be going too well between Anne and Margaret. Anne tries her luck introducing herself to the twins, Charles and Hamish. She finds it a little bit odd that Charles is meeting her in his sleepwear, but she figures that the Sims in this household, they do live a slightly different life to her and her family at the farm, and so she decides to overlook it and tries to make some conversation.
Suli!
Anne decides to tell them one of her stories, one of the stories that she likes to tell her little sister Audrey, about a creature that she's seen in the waters near her home. But for some reason, the twins don't seem that impressed by it. In fact, trying to have a conversation with them isn't much better than trying to have a conversation with Margaret was. And Anne's starting to think that she doesn't really belong here in the mansion with this part of her family, and maybe she would be better off just going back to the farm. Leaving her cousin's home, Anne has never been so glad to be outside on a rainy day, and this has given her a little bit of a realisation about what she wants in life. She doesn't really want to live in a mansion like this. Her mother had asked her if she wanted to marry a rich man and have a nice home, but what Anne really wants is just to live on a nice farm, like the one she lives on now. And when she arrives home, Anne finds her brother a little bit stinky from doing work on the farm, but he's still enthusiastic and happy to see her. And her mum and her little sister are out playing in the rain, and Anne realises that this is where she belongs, and this is where she's happiest. And as she sits down to eat some of her mother's cooking, Anne realises that the sort of life she wants is the sort of life that her mum has had, and so that's what she will aspire to be. Because even cleaning the chicken coop when it's at its smelliest is less difficult than trying to make conversation with her cousins had been. As we approach Saturday morning, the last day of the year, the end of 1799, I have made a few changes to the farm lot here. We still have the toddler bed at the moment for Audrey, but that will be going soon because today is Audrey's birthday. And the room that was being used for the infants and newborns has now been turned into a bedroom for the girls, with their two beds moved into there. That will be where Anne and Audrey sleep. We have a swing set out in the garden now, and we have some marbles set up for playing and for fun. And the room that Alexander and Anne were sleeping in is now just exclusively Alexander's bedroom. And Anne has once more autonomously lined up to come and play in the pond, because she may have aged up to a teenager, but playing in the pond is still absolutely her favourite thing to do. As dawn breaks on Saturday, we see the start of our end-of-year holiday, and because this year was autumn, the holiday is bonfire night, and the goals are to put up decorations, have a fire, have fireworks, and have the party spirit. So we have our bonfire at the bottom of the lot that we will light. Our decorations are already up, so that's been checked off for everyone. So we will just be having the party spirit, and we'll maybe have some fireworks. But before we kick off the festivities for the end-of-year celebration, today is also Audrey's birthday, and Audrey is getting ready to age up from a toddler to a child. Audrey is a different personality from her sister Anne. She's more active. She will be a rambunctious scamp for her aspiration. She will just have the creative trait just now, as all girls will, but as she grows up she will have different traits from her older brother and sister, because of course Audrey is her own person. And I'm just going to take her into Cass now and give her a makeover. And here Audrey is in Cass, and that's a very cute and period appropriate hairstyle that she's aged up with, but I am going to be changing that because that's not the sort of look that I want for Audrey. While I am in Cass, I'm just going to quickly show the different faces. We have Anne here, who I think looks mostly like Rory, and then we have Alexander, who doesn't really look anything like Anne because I think he looks more like Penny. I didn't spend too long in Cass on Audrey, but she does certainly have a different look from some of her other Sims. So this is her everyday wear. This is her formal wear. She's actually got a kilt and she's wearing that with a blazer. This is her sportswear, which is the same as Victor's sportswear over in the second household. This is her sleepwear. This is her party wear, which is a shorter version of her everyday dress with a fancy collar on it. Again, swimwear, I'm a little bit restricted in what I can dress the Sims in. This is her warm weather wear, which is the same as her party wear. And this is her cold weather wear, which she's wearing with the muddy boots and the cap. Audrey's clothing choices are a little less delicate and feminine than they were for Anne, because Audrey's a little bit more rough and ready as a character than Anne, and we're going to see that come out more and more as she grows up. And here we are with all our households as they look now. We are officially out of the era of any newborns, infants or toddlers until the next generation starts. So now that Audrey's aged up, I've removed all the toddler stuff from the house, put that into the household inventory, it's into storage effectively, and here in the room that was used as the nursery, I've got the 2 beds for the 2 girls. I'm also going to close these walls off to all the bedrooms and give them their own doors. So another couple of small changes to the house overall. This bed will just be Alexander's, and obviously the idea is Alexander is the heir, he'll be living here, and there will come a point where he's married and has his wife living here with him, whilst Penny and Rory are still living here, so Alexander needs to have a room that's going to be big enough to accommodate a double bed. His sisters will move out, obviously not just yet, they will move out in time, and all that is a little bit of time away yet, but I just wanted to get the changes made to the house now, just so that we're ready to go in that respect. And I have the marbles and the swing set there, and I'm also going to add some monkey bars because this set here has quite a rustic sort of look to it with vines growing over it. I know it's probably not something that we really would have had at this time, but I do want to have something out here because now that I'm not using the crystal in the house anymore, which I was using to help me with managing the infants and the newborns in the house, everyone's needs are decaying quite quickly, including their fun need. So I wanted to have something else just to help with getting fun needs back up. So now that Audrey is aged up and the chores on the farm are mostly done, I'm going to start checking off all the goals for the holiday for everyone. So everyone wants to do something related to the fire. So I'll get Rory over here to light the fire, and I'll get other members of the family to hang out at the fire and dance at the fire. And Rory lighting the fire is enough for him to have a good holiday. The decoration's up, and having the fire is enough that he has checked off enough to have a happy holiday. So hopefully that will be the same for just about everyone else. We'll see how it works for Penny. Okay, so dancing at the fire has checked off the holiday for Penny. That's been enough for her. So Alexander's come over to the fire, and that's been enough for him as well. So that means we've just got the girls, Anne and Audrey. Bruce has come over to visit us and join us here at the fire, maybe just to complain about things at his own household. He's having a good chat with Rory there, probably because with his own father being quite old and removed from things now, Rory is the next best person he can come and get some advice from. So hanging out and dancing at the fire wasn't enough for Anne to have a good holiday, and it's not been enough for Audrey either, so they're going to have more of the party spirit things checked off. As a child, Audrey doesn't care about the decorations, and Anne, as a teenager, does like the decorations, but that and the fire alone isn't enough for her to check off the holiday, so I'll need to do a few more things with them just to make sure they have a good holiday. Audrey's going to take this opportunity to get to know Bruce a little bit better. She did meet him when she was a toddler, but now that he's a young adult and she's a child, they've both aged up this year, she wants to have a little bit more of a chat with him and get to know him a little bit better. I did a lot of party spirit things with Anne and Audrey, and it wasn't enough to check off for them to have a good holiday. So we've got some fireworks set up here. Rory's going to light the fireworks, and I'm going to have Anne and Audrey watch them. And I've got a sparkler for Audrey to play with. So hopefully that will be enough for them now to have a good holiday. Okay, so that's Anne now had a good holiday as well. So I just need to check on Audrey. And Audrey's had a good holiday as well now after seeing the fireworks. And Audrey's absolutely exhausted. So now that everyone's had a good holiday, we're going to wind down 1799. So I'll just do a quick summary of what has happened this year. At the start of the year, we had Bruce, the oldest child in our second household, age up to be a young adult. Then in our second household again, the youngest child, Victor, aged up to a child from a toddler. Then in the middle of the week, we met two new characters. Emily, who is a friend that Alexander has made and taken quite a liking to and is a potential love interest for him. And at our second household, Margaret has met Richard, who she has taken very much a liking to, but unfortunately her older brother Bruce really doesn't like him at all. Then, towards the end of the week, Anne, in our main household, aged up from a child to a teenager, and Audrey aged up from a toddler to a child, as we then celebrated a bonfire night for the end of year. And as this is 1799, we've reached the end of our first decade. So it's very exciting times. Obviously, there will be new things that happen in the 1800s, and we'll start to shift across to the next generation of the family as well. But I'm going to cover off more of that in the next video that I do. The next video that I release will be a summary of the whole decade. That'll be the first part of it, and then the next part of it will be an explanation of things that will change as we move into the next decade, the 1800s. And with that said, that's us done with 1799. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. If you didn't enjoy it, please give it a dislike and let me know why in the comments below. Thanks for watching.